Hey everybody, it's Michael from Team 33, and today I'm going to be going over how to set up and use our project for CS4500 Software Development. So, just a quick rundown. We developed this in Node.js, which means that it's going to run best on a Unix environment if you're going to be running it locally, which means that you're either going to want to use a Linux distribution, Mac OS, or the Ubuntu subsystem on Windows, which you can get for free from the Windows Store. With that being said, you're also going to need a couple of other things. You're going to need to use Git, which will allow you to interact with the repository. That can be gotten on any of these. You're going to need npm, which is our package manager, and you're also going to need Node, which is the framework that we're using. You'll also want Sonar Scanner if you're going to be making local reporting, but if you're going to be using the Jenkins setup to do all of your reporting, then you will not need to download it locally. So, with that being said, the first thing that you're going to need to do in order to run this locally is you're going to need to clone the Git repo. I'm going to be using SSH. You can also use HTTPS. Doesn't really matter. But it is a GitHub Enterprise repo, so you'll need to authenticate in order to download it. So now that we have that, we can go ahead and cd into our new directory, and that's going to be all of the code that's necessary to run this. You'll see a build script here. The build script is used primarily for the deployment server. You can use it on local, but I would actually recommend not using it because it cleans up all of the important logging that you would like to see when you're using it locally. So, to run it locally, you're actually going to need two terminal windows, one for the client and one for the server. So I'll just go ahead and cd back into this directory, so now we're in the same directory on both. One of these will go into the client, and the other one will go into the server. The one that's, they'll both need to run npm install, which will start to grab all of the packages that are necessary to run our application. But now you'll need to start each of these, so that started the server, so now the server's running, and we'll start the front end over here. And now it's starting. You can see over here in the bottom left corner that my web browser is blinking, and that's because it just opened a new tab, and that's our app. That's all you really need to do to start it up, and you can just Control-C them to close them out with no harm done. So, the next thing is coverage reporting. We have a setup using NYC and Istanbul for coverage reporting. So, to use that, what you'd want to do is just run npm run script cover, which will run a coverage report on the server. So that'll run all of the tests and generate an HTML file and an lcov file, which you can use with SonarQube. If you want to use SonarQube locally, what you're going to need to do is get Sonar Scanner. And I'm just going to show off my configuration I have for this, which is going to be what you need to set up. So, first off, you're going to need to use the Sonar host URL, which is what you'll see right over here, which is the SonarQube server. And then you'll also need to set the project key, which is CS4500 Node.js, project name, which is the same as the project key, version, sources, which I put as dot here because I'm always going to execute this from the root directory of the project. I put in the exclusions for client, all of the client files and directories, all of the server test coverage, because none of these we need to worry about our code coverage on because they're either generated files or they're something that can't be tested. We set our test directory, and lastly I set a report path because we're not using SonarQube to run our tests and generate our coverage report. We're actually using NYC. So with all of this done, I can actually go back And if I want to run a report, all I would need to do is run sonar scanner from the root directory of the project. I put in the exclusions for client, all of the client files and directories, all of the server test and coverage, because none of these we need to worry about our code coverage on, because they're either generated files or they're something that can't be tested. We set our test directory, and lastly I set a report path, because we're not using SonarQube to run our tests and generate our coverage report. We're actually using NYC. So with all of this done, I can actually go back, and if I want to run a report, all I would need to do is run sonar scanner from the root directory of the project.